Hi everybody, it's Liquid Lunch. It's me, Hugh, and Sandra's not here today, unfortunately, but we are fortunate because we have Stephen Pollitt joining us here at the table, who flew in from Colorado yesterday. And anyway, great to have you here in Toronto, Stephen. And I think we're going to have an interesting discussion because you're in Toronto to teach an introductory course on source energy.
Source energy medicine.
Medicine.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, that's a big topic right there. There's a lot of, probably a lot of people out there have a lot of questions. I've got some questions, but let's get right into it. What do you mean by source energy medicine, first of all?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Hugh, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come here and have what I imagine is going to be a really exciting conversation, and certainly one of my favorite things in the whole wide world to talk about. Mm-hmm. Source energy medicine is a holistic self-healing methodology that utilizes water and specially designed charging labels, and we'll I'm sure get into some of the technical aspects of it. But our materials or our technology enables anyone around the world to go to our website, download charging labels, and actually be able to make over 190 different remedies, or medicines as we call them, source energy medicines, in their own home. And we have remedies for everything from bacteria and virus to things that would be considered mental or emotional and even spiritual.
Wow. So that kind of reminds me, it sounds like to a certain extent, because we just had Dr. Emoto here in Toronto a few weeks ago. Yeah. It sounds like, he would put the labels on water and was able to demonstrate with photography that it actually changed the structure of the water, depending on what those labels were. Is this related, or is it an advancement on that technology or that system?
Yeah, in the early days of source energy medicine, without Dr. Emoto's research, it would have been challenging to explain to a person that we could take water and do anything to it, let alone turn it into a remedy that would have a positive benefit to our health or well-being. So Dr. Emoto's research clearly illustrates that water can be influenced positively and negatively, and actually holds the vibrational structure of whatever is influencing it. And we had, about 7 years ago or so, we sent several of our remedies to Dr. Emoto's lab in Tokyo and had them analyzed, had them frozen and photographed. And each of the remedies creates a beautiful hexagonally shaped center crystal, and then the outside of the crystals, each one is different and absolutely beautiful.
Wow. So now, I'm just curious. So that's almost like proof of certainly some effect of these labels on the water. Yeah. And do you have that? I'd love to see that on the website or something like that.
Here's the I can show them to you, and we could likely show them to your audience. But in all due respect to Dr. Emoto and his organization, if we wanted to use them commercially, the licensing fees are beyond our budget at the moment.
Okay, fair enough.
I do show them at workshops, but even just to have them frozen and photographed was a significant investment for us. But you're right. I mean, in the beginning, we started in 2004, and What the Bleep Do We Know was popular then, and I got so literally just beat down and tired of people asking, have you ever had your remedies photographed at Dr. Emoto's lab? So we pretty much emptied the bank account, because people wanted some sort of, science doesn't talk about proof very much, and yet people want proof. Science talks about strong evidence towards, and that's the other interesting thing. Dr. Emoto's work is technically not scientifically credible, but we do have scientifically credible testing of our remedies that shows that we haven't yet had the opportunity to have every single remedy that we make tested. It's an instrument called Raman spectroscopy, and it's used in material science labs around the world, and it's completely credible. And it actually shows that each of our remedies that we had tested, and I believe we had 7 or 8 tested, each one, the hydrogen and oxygen molecules are actually structured, clustered, and arranged differently in each of those different samples. And yet each bottle was taken from the same case of spring water, sealed bottles, the same production date and code. So the lab technician said that every single one of those samples should be exactly the same. You got a characteristic curve. I can share that to you too, and I don't know if you have a way of uploading stills to the
we
program
could,
in some
sure,
way.
if you send us those, so we could even get them in there right now.
That would be awesome.
So let's we'll do that after the show.
Cool.
So let me ask you. So maybe you could tell the story of how you came to be bringing this source energy medicine to the world.
That's a good story, and I'll tell the very brief version. I started experiencing pretty significant health challenges when I was in my late 20s, and my lifestyle was pretty out of control. I was living in New York City, working 70 hours a week, but most of the health challenges that I had were things that ran in my family line. My mother, my aunts, my uncles. Mostly on the maternal side, mostly hereditary things. And, I thought early 20s was young to start to experiencing these disease that ran in my family. So my parents both ended up dying sudden. My father didn't die suddenly, he was slowly dying, but my mother and father literally died 2 days apart. And my mother was 66 and my father was about 65 when he started getting seriously ill. He died when he was in his early 70s, but the last 7 years of his life was like very, very poor quality. That experience, and I'm the youngest of 4 children. I looked at my 3 older siblings, all had very, very similar challenges. And right there at my parents' memorial service, I decided, I didn't have words for it then, but I literally decided to not buy into the predeterministic vision that my genes held in store for me. I didn't know what I was going to do, and was not holistically minded. My parents were very traditional. While my mother was not a fan of Western medicine, in fact, the span between her last doctor visit and when she went into the hospital when we knew she was seriously ill was from the time I was born. She hadn't actually been to a.
Was there something that?
Well, she saw all of her friends. We lived in an urban community, and all of her friends manifested a cancer of some point, some kind, and in very, very short order, they went through radiation and chemo, and in very short order they died. And so my mother at some point decided if she thought she had cancer, she would do nothing rather than follow what all of her friends did. And I'm talking about 6 or 7, women who she was very close with and lived literally, within 2-block span. So my mother knew she had cancer for a long period of time and chose to not do anything about it. I don't know how long she had cancer. But that experience really put me on a path of figuring out what could I do so that I don't end up dead at 66. And, while we can't guarantee things, I think there are an awful lot of things that we can do to help. So I started studying nutrition formally, just out of frustration of not being able to figure out what to eat, which seems insane. It seems like humans are the only species on this planet who can't figure out what to eat for lunch in terms of what will serve us. So through studying nutrition formally, I had a career change and started practicing nutrition in a private practice. And there are limits to what we can do with food and nutrition and lifestyle and even herbs and supplements. So I kept really broadening my horizon wider and wider and wider, looking for better tools and answers. So Source Energy Medicine honestly came from years and years of, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of researching and trying and testing and traveling around the world, studying with different people and going to different workshops, reading every book I could get my hands on, and at the end of the day, truly frustrated by the lack of positive results. I felt like I needed the remedial version of everything, and yet when I would speak to my colleagues and friends who were on this, pretty committed healing path, their experiences were similar. So in some regards, a lot of the tools that I found were very helpful. But at the end of the day, we're really just helping to placate symptoms or slow progression of disease. We weren't doing anything about the underlying cause or eradicating disease long term.
Okay.
So my belief is our body is designed, physiologically designed, to be self-balancing, self-healing, and self-correcting. And yet, until Source Energy Medicine, I had no evidence that that was true. I hadn't met a single human being who was able to self-balance, self-heal, and self-correct. Certainly, I had friends who were able to stay somewhat in balance, but and even, you know, I started exploring vibrational remedies in different methodologies, and there were some challenges even with that, in that some people would have short-term positive results, even with very serious cancers and leukemias and things that are on the incurable list, only to have those same situations or very similar situations re-manifest. So that made absolutely no sense to me. If we're able to actually heal from something, the healing should be long-term,
Okay.
in my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, you looked at a lot of different methodologies. You read a lot of information, different forms of vibrational therapy.
Yeah.
And then how did you come to Source Energy Medicine? Was that sort of the culmination of, after all your looking around?
Well, right before Source Energy Medicine, I was working with an organization in Colorado, and they are the world's leading manufacturer of vibrational remedies. They make more different remedies than anyone else
and
on
what
the
is,
planet.
you know, can you give us an example of one of those vibrational remedies? Just
Yeah, this organization made remedies that were actually the counter vibration to pathogens or dis-ease. So if someone went out for lunch and they picked up salmonella, this organization has a remedy that actually is the counter vibration to salmonella. So in theory, by taking it orally, it was, you know, a little homeopathic-like remedy. It's not homeopathy, but it's similar in some ways, and they're in little 2-ounce brown bottles. The theory is, if we're able to nullify the pattern or the frequency of salmonella, then symptoms go away.
okay.
So I worked there in part doing research, and in part as a private practitioner where I worked with clients one-on-one. But a lot of what I did at the organization was develop these vibrational remedies. The founder of the organization taught me how to do intuitive research and how to create formulas within their system. And it was really through that research that I started getting frustrated with the limits of that methodology and started asking some really big questions. I was frustrated with the expense of that methodology. I had clients who were choosing, do I feed my family or do I buy these remedies? And it was horrible for me as a practitioner to be in a spot where, my average client was spending $400 or $500 a month, month after month, and there was no end in sight. And I had some clients spending $5,000 and $6,000 a month, and for a lot of people that's cost prohibitive.
And we were talking before we came on the show that people can go to your website right now and get some of these remedies from Source Energy Medicine that they can start to use immediately. All of our material, the technology that we use to make our charging labels or to make our remedies is actually, I don't know what the best way of doing this is. We might be able to really
get a
make
close
that look
up
good
of
in
that
editing.
or something. Yeah.
But
so we have electronic files that have every single charging label that we have available for humans, available on our website as a free download. And I wrote a book titled Heal Thyself, which explains in pretty good detail the entire Source Energy Medicine methodology. So someone could go to our website, download the book, download the charging labels. We don't even ask for email information at this point. So we're committed to an environmentally sustainable model and an economically sustainable model, so that anyone on this planet who's interested in exploring Source Energy Medicine can, regardless of whether they could financially support us or not. So we have a number of videos on our website. There's a 10-minute how to take video. So if someone went to our website, downloaded the file, printed the labels, had some bottles and good quality water, they could be taking Source Energy medicines and within an hour.
Okay, so how does it work? I mean, people who are aware of homeopathy are aware of how that process works, with the and I'm not an expert, but with the dilution.
Right.
So essentially you're taking water, but somehow that water is energetically charged with the homeopathic remedy.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what the methodology was at this company that you're working for, but can you talk a little bit about what is the process? How does it actually work? And why does it work with what you're doing with these charging labels?
Excellent question. So homeopathy starts with a substance and dilutes it to the point where there's nothing but vibration. And interestingly enough, the more it's diluted, the stronger the potency is of that remedy. We're starting not with substance, we're starting strictly with vibration.
Okay.
So when I create a source energy medicine, let's say it's the transformation bacteria remedy, for example, I essentially write a story that outlines what is incorporated in that formula. So some of it is pathology, some of it is some of it's biology. It's everything that we know and I'm intuitively testing to make sure that the information is accurate, that it is correct, and it is helpful.
Which is interesting because science, if you buy into what science and medicine, traditional medicine, is telling us, is like they know what causes disease. It's a germ, or it's a virus, or but really, I don't think we know as much as we think we know, or might think we know, about what causes diseases. There's holistic. I don't think we know it all. So using this intuitive approach might be really a better way to go.
Well, certainly being able to intuitively test research pathology for the efficacy of it, how accurate is this, saves a tremendous amount of time. And the best thing within source energy medicine is the worst thing that can happen is nothing, because we're not using substance, we're not using herbs or supplements or pathogens. In a lot of cases are used in creating certain remedies and medicines. With source energy medicine, we create this narrative, and a narrative essentially is becoming a vibrational story for what this remedy will represent. Once the story is as good as we can get it, it's whole and perfect and complete, we create an 8-digit charging number, which is the numeric equivalent of that story. So in science, there are the theories of entanglement, or the theory of entanglement, and the essence of it is if they take two particles that have a common bond and they separate them, so they're no longer local, they call it non-locality. And in the beginning, the experiments were opposite sides of the lab, and the experiments kept getting more and more broad, to the point where there were labs on the other side of the Earth, and in very well isolated environments. If they stimulated one molecule and the other one was in sensory deprivation, the other molecule had the same exact experience. So that same theory is how a person, so the narrative or the story that I create for the remedy communicates the charging label through the quantum realm, and it's a communication that can never be interrupted. So we had a person not long ago in Nepal who had a student of hers who was seriously ill, went to all of the best specialists that they could find. They flew the young child to several different specialists. There wasn't a lot of hope. Someone told her about our website. Within an hour, she was able to have remedies and help this young man with those remedies. So the narrative is communicating to the charging labels anywhere on the planet. And again, that it's being done through the quantum realm, and the communication can never be interrupted. And kind of a cool thing is if we update a remedy or improve a remedy, the charging labels are instantly updated, so they don't necessarily have to have the 2014 version to receive the most up-to-date benefit. So the story is transmitting the information to the charging labels. The charging labels is communicating to the water. The water has to see the charging label, and we're communicating a language that water understands. And that's why when we look at the Raman spectroscopy testing, the water molecules are actually structured and clustered and arranged differently in each of those 7 samples that we sent to this lab. And if we weren't able to do that, the characteristic curve would be exactly the same, because all of the molecules would be exactly the same.
So these were 7 different remedies, each with its own unique signature.
Exactly.
Okay, so if this works, it seems like this is a very easy cure. I know you're not supposed to use that word, but treatment that you can use for almost any situation. And as you mentioned, not just a physical illness, but what is the range of situations that this technology could actually be used for?
Yeah, another great question, and honestly, based on my experience over the last 10 years, I've yet to come across a single challenge that was outside the scope of potential and possibility. I'm talking about physical, mental, emotional, and even things like those who are experiencing temporary financial or even long-term financial challenge, or I've worked with a lot of people who are artists and are creatively blocked, or people having a difficult time attracting an ideal relationship, an intimate relationship. To me, the answer behind all dis-ease or all imbalance or all areas of lack, for that matter, is energetic. It's vibrational. And it's that particular vibration in a certain aspect of our being, like the physical aspect, that would attract a bacteria or a virus or a dis-ease. And when that's not present, that's not going to happen. So, to me, everything that we manifest is there's always a vibrational root to it. And yes, so even mind-body medicine, which to me is very, very exciting, is somewhere in between, and that, yes, it's our thought, feelings, and emotions, but our thoughts, feelings, and emotions are related to our vibration. So I use Dr. David Hawkins' scale of 0 to 1,000 to calibrate energy. And if we look at the physical aspect of our being, well, the one reason why I love that scale is 200 is the dividing line between helpful and not helpful. So if we had a bacteria that calibrated below 200, that would be like salmonella that I spoke about earlier. So if a person has an exposure to salmonella, that will create dis-ease. Source energy medicines don't actually combat or fight the salmonella. It actually transforms that vibrational signature from below 200 to above 200. So essentially what we're doing is transforming an unfriendly bacteria into a friendly bacteria. Our bodies need friendly bacteria to digest our food and do all of the processes in our brain. So it's only the unfriendly bacteria so it's not necessarily the bacteria that I would have an issue with, it's the vibration of the bacteria. If we simply shift the vibrational signature of that bacteria, it goes from being something that would create dis-ease to something that actually helps to promote health and well-being. It's like going into a dark room and flipping on a switch. Technically, the darkness is still there. It's just experiencing something else vibrationally.
So how many specific remedies do you have currently that you've written a story for, that you have charging labels for?
Over 190.
Okay.
Yeah, I've lost track a little bit, and we've created a few new ones recently. We hadn't made a new remedy in about 5 years, and recently we actually have released a few new remedies that are really exciting. But Hugh, the average person takes 8 to 12 different remedies. Most people aren't taking 100. I don't know anyone who's taking 190. I mean, I certainly did in the beginning as the official tester. But even sometimes I received an email maybe 6 or 8 months ago from a guy who was taking 50 remedies, and I was just taken aback. I was like, how could you do that? And he was a practitioner, and a lot of practitioners, when they find our method, they're like kids in a candy store.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the first year of medical school, where a lot of first-year medical students think they have every dis-ease under the sun because they're reading the pathology, they're reading all the signs and symptoms, and they're finding their own quirks and things in that. So, yeah, I mean, the average person would take 8 to 12, someone with a significant challenge, maybe a few more. But for me, again, there's the worst thing that can happen is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Even whether a person takes 12 or 50, there's no additional financial expense, and it's a few more bottles on the counter somewhere, and usually in the kitchen.
And they make it themselves with the labels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, we were making and selling remedies.
Yeah.
It was the technology we had. We didn't have the charging label technology. And it was environmentally really challenging for me because we were shipping cases of water, and in those days the average person was taking about 30 remedies at a time.
Right.
So and the interesting thing for me with source energy medicine is there is a beginning and there is a definite end
To the treatment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Really to I think to the person's process. So other approaches that I practiced, there was no end, and that was something that didn't make any sense to me at all. And with source, so to me, the end is when I have a high enough calibration of every aspect of my being, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of the subtle aspects of my being. Once all of that calibrates above 200, dis-ease, challenge, areas of lack can't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I have to be concerned about is maintaining and sustaining that high energy level.
Mm-hmm.
I have to drink water anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I would be dependent on source energy medicine long term, but I have to drink water anyway. I would much rather drink water encoded with love or humility or compassion than water that's not. So the kind of tie up, that's the story about how this all came about. I no longer have any of the physical health challenges that I had starting in my 20s. Some of them were on the incurable list, and they were progressive, not a lot of hope for them. Things like osteo and rheumatoid arthritis, my joints were getting swollen and really, really painful. In those days I worked with my hands, and it was a huge challenge. My joints have actually gone back to the way they were before those issues started to manifest. So I haven't taken a source energy medicine for anything specific in about 9 years. So, yeah.
So it sounds almost too good to be true, right? And yet on the other hand, it offers such a promise, for things like, well, we're hearing currently the big Ebola scare coming out of Africa. Like, for example, is there an Ebola label that?
There is, Hugh, and to me, that's kind of an old paradigm of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if the physical aspect of my being is calibrated above 200, I could roll around in Ebola. Technically, I'm not encouraging you, and certainly none of the audience to do that. But at a high enough energy level, and to me, it helps me to understand why during the plagues, why the plague didn't wipe out 100% of the population. So yes, there's some pretty good evidence that shows that it was the rats that carried the fleas, and the fleas carried the bubonic plague, for example. The bubonic plague killed those who were vibrationally a match to that, So Dr. Hawkins' research indicates that 87% of the human population calibrates below 200. To me, while as startling a statistic as that is, it helps me to understand why we have the epidemics that we have, and why we have so much dis-ease, not only physically, but think about what we're seeing mentally or emotionally, even over the last 50 years. Is like we didn't have these challenges prior to that. So
okay, so now, do you have any stories of miraculous recoveries as a result of using source energy medicine that you could share with us?
We do. There are a number of good testimonials in our book. We're working on compiling more and having them available on our website. We have this amazing young man named River Kai. He's in the UK, and he's an amazing marketing person. He's creating social media presence for us, so we're going to have the ability for people to upload video testimonials to our YouTube channel in the very near future, and that's been my dream for a long, long time. Some of the most dramatic stories were a man, this was very early on in source energy medicine. It was the husband of a practitioner friend of mine. And he had pancreatic cancer, he had pancreatic stones, he had about 7 different significant challenges to his pancreas. Typically, you measure pain on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever experienced in your life. His pain was beyond 10. And his physicians wanted to do exploratory surgery. They weren't sure what they could do, if anything. They thought his pancreas was literally beyond any hope. He started taking our remedies, and within about 15 minutes his pain went from a 10 to a 2, and then within the hour he was out of pain completely. The surgery was scheduled for about 2 weeks out. At the insistence of his wife, she demanded that he have more tests done before the surgery, and they couldn't find any trace of cancer, couldn't find any trace of the stones. The only thing that was left, if I remember correctly, was scarring to the pancreas. So obviously they canceled the surgery, and in those days, that was beyond my paradigm of belief of what would be possible for helping to transform, balance, and restore something like advanced pancreatic cancer. Usually advanced pancreatic cancer, there's not a whole lot of hope for that, and here it was, and within less than 2 weeks, and this is 11 years ago, and I'm still in touch with the woman, and her husband is still happy, healthy.
Now, and as you mentioned, you've got about 190 of these remedies, so probably almost any condition, not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, are available. And now here's another question, though, because, I mean, you mentioned with that other company you were working for, there were instances where the remedy wasn't effective. And I want to ask you about this. Are there any instances that you've heard of with the source energy medicine where somebody's used it and for some reason it hasn't been effective? And I'm wondering if that's the case, why that might be the case. What's happening?
Yeah, of all of the people who communicate with me, I can't think of a single person who has not made significant progress. Some people certainly slower. I mean, everyone heals differently, and some certainly faster than others. There are some people that have not experienced positive results within the same time period that I've seen others, but I don't have recollection of a single person who has taken the appropriate remedies for a logical amount of time, stuck with it, who has not improved significantly.
I'm just wondering about a situation where, because what I find often that people who have become ill for whatever reason, it's almost like they want to be sick, that they're creating that in their life for their own reason that might be subconscious. They might say they want to get better, but they really don't. And I'm wondering if in a situation like that, say someone who's come down with cancer, but there's a deeper underlying reason why they've brought that into their life. And I'm wondering if, how does that relate to the source energy medicine? And maybe I'm just thinking myself here, but maybe the cancer remedy isn't the right one, and maybe some kind of other emotional or some other kind of remedy. But how would they find out what it is that they really need to be working with?
Absolutely amazing questions, and I agree with you 100%. So if someone has cancer, yes, I would always suggest the cancer remedy. And from my experience, it is not the most important remedy that's going to be in terms of significant to their overall healing process. Absolutely emotional component to every disease I've ever come across. And again, the emotions are there because of a vibration. So the subconscious aspect that you beautifully mentioned to me is the most significant aspect, and I think one of the most helpful components of source energy medicine. It's a major key to, I believe, our success. And so the reason why we have these 8 basic remedies that everyone takes regardless of the challenge in any aspect of life, and within some of those remedies transform all of these universal subconscious resistances that I believe really manifest or show up in a person's inability to reach their true potential. And I'm talking about true potential in terms of their health and well-being, or their career, or relationships. So, we have the conscious, and then we have the subconscious. So almost everyone who finds Source Energy Medicine and who communicates with me, consciously they really want to heal. Subconsciously, different story.
Right.
So that is, that's like the push me, pull you, that's consciously, and that was totally my story, and that's why I was so frustrated. I was doing everything. I used to tell my close friends and colleagues, at moments of frustration, I felt 1/10 of what I was doing in terms of time and energy and effort and expense. I should have been grand. I should have had no challenges, and I was only working on physical. I should have had no challenges, and yet that wasn't my experience. And I now know that if I didn't figure out a way of completely transforming my subconscious mind, I'd still be fighting dis-ease, trying to stay out of pain and discomfort, slow progression, things like that. So the subconscious aspect to me is huge, absolutely huge. If we didn't have that, or the ability to transform our energy levels, I wouldn't be sitting here with you having this conversation. I would be home in Colorado with my head in doing research,
So basically the bottom line is that somehow Source Energy Medicine takes that into account with these 8.
Absolutely.
There's 8 standard treatments, and then that deals with that subconscious aspect and really helps people get on the healing path.
Yeah, and specifically, Hugh, so we have remedies that transform subconscious resistance to healing, to abundance in general, which is a really large way of looking at resistance. And I find that most people have 70% or better. An average is probably 80% resistance to abundance, resistance to even our higher aspect or our soul aspect, resistance to healing. So so I now know that I had 80 or 85% subconscious resistance to healing. So all of my conscious efforts were 10 to 15% effective,
right?
At best.
So what is... No, I mean, you're in Toronto today to give a talk tonight. And can you just tell us where and when that's going to be happening for people who want to get started? And I take it that's a great way for people to get started with this, especially if they're in Toronto this evening. Yeah,
I mean, the event tonight is going to be absolutely wonderful. Our dear friend Anna Osterling orchestrated this event. It's going to be at the at Estonian House, 958 Broadview Avenue. And we'll be in the Grand Ballroom starting at 7 p.m. And then next weekend we have a full series of workshops starting Friday night through Monday, and that's going to be in Yorkville, 111 Avenue Road. If anyone's interested, just go to Facebook, search for Source Energy Medicine, and
we'll put
find
that link
the events.
So people can
that'd be great.
Get all that information.
Yeah, but Hugh, so I mean, the reason why I travel this far to share about Source Energy Medicine is, people can go to our website, watch a couple of videos, download the materials, read the book, and honestly, probably 90% of people using Source Energy Medicine, we never hear from. Because our materials there's a sample protocol in the book, and there are practitioners who come to our workshop that support people, like Fern Wolf, who's our official Canadian agent for Source Energy Medicine. She's a private practitioner who came to our workshops in Virginia, and she came again and again, and then started inviting me to Ontario to do events. So she's hosting has hosted all of our events in Canada so far, and certainly will continue to do that. But people don't have to come to the workshop to be able to learn enough to get started. And we have a lot of people who are able to go through to achieve complete success without even sending us an email. So I love the live events. It's my favorite thing to do of everything I do within Source Energy Medicine, and yet it's not an essential part of it.
So that's amazing. So people who are watching this right now can can go to the website, which is sourceenergyresearch.com.
Either sourceenergyresearch.com or sourceenergymedicine.com. We have several different sites that run parallel.
Right, where the book they can download for free, Heal Thyself, and they can get started. And as you said, 90% of the people can just do that without any any personal interaction. But if people want that personal interaction, they go tonight to the Estonian House, 958
Broadview. Yeah,
which is a great venue, right downtown.
Is that right? That's great.
You're gonna like that.
We're excited. We do work one-on-one with clients, and we offer energetic assessments and custom remedy protocols. But again, very, very, very small percentage of people who are using Source Energy Medicines do we support in that way, and it's not because we're not available. It's just not essential. So certainly people with significant health challenges are primarily people who are requesting an energetic assessment. Others as well, but Fern works one-on-one with clients in Georgetown, and there are a number of different practitioners who have come to our workshops and are competent and help people.
Okay, well, great. So people can look forward to that tonight, and check out the website if you're watching this after the fact. And I just want to say thanks for coming in today. It sounds really awesome, and I'm going to get on there and download the book myself and get started, because it sounds I love stuff. It's like too good to be true.
Yeah, and there again, Hugh, I mean, so in the beginning we were making and selling remedies, and it was about $1,500 start to finish.
Yeah.
And that was a big advancement from what I was practicing earlier, and enabled me to help more people. But in the beginning of Source Energy Medicine, I intuitively knew that this work was going to help millions and millions, if not billions, of people around the world. And if we were going to do that, we had to make it more available, more cost effective. So we slowly progressed to this point where we have our materials openly and freely available. So, even if a person is skeptical, they could go to our website, and there's no investment. There's a little bit of time, a little bit of research. Worst thing that can happen is nothing. And
who needs Obamacare or OHIP? That's what we have in Ontario.
Well, in all seriousness, we have people who are using Source Energy Medicine in third world countries where they don't have many options.
Yeah.
And I every time I receive an email from a friend in India who shares a story of helping someone who otherwise would go without any kind of care, and they have significant turnaround or improvement, I just some days I wonder if I'm either genius or insane with this business model, because it's when we were making and selling remedies, it was a great business model.
Yeah.
Environmentally, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And now it's a very, very, very different business model. We do graciously accept financial contributions from everyone who's using our materials, but it's not required. And I think we're pretty gentle about that. We don't ask for email addresses, so we're not going to solicit people for future anything. And I think people on a soul level will get what we're doing, and we're doing it out of really love for humanity, out of my own frustration. And I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. And watching my parents and the choices that they were making when they were at the end of their life was hard way for me to wake up, and I certainly would not want anyone to be in this similar situation with very, very limited resources. And
well, that's awesome. Thanks for coming in today, Stephen.
My pleasure.
People can check out the website again and get started right now on healing themselves. Special offer. Really as a thank you to you, Hugh, and to your audience, the first 50 people who come to our event tonight can buy one ticket at full price and get a second ticket for free. So come on down, bring a friend, and it'd be great to see your audience, and hopefully be able to join us tonight. Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks for doing this today. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time on Liquid Lunch here at thatchannel.com. Take care. Phenomenal question.